In this lesson, we'll create the suspension for the rear of the motorcycle. So it's a little bit hard to see in the reference that we're using, but if we take a look at this image, you can see that this shock is what we're talking about. So this simple cylinder with kind of a helix shape around it, and kind of a spring. So it's going to be placed, if we go into the left view and turn on our background, it's going to be placed kind of right in here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and go into the top view and just draw out a simple cylinder to begin with. Okay, so I'll just draw out a cylinder. Okay, and give it a little bit of height. And we get something like that. It doesn't have to be too exact at this point. Now around this I'm going to draw a shape, spline, and a helix. So go ahead and go into the center. Let's just draw this out. And in this case, my helix already has some geometry on it, so I'm going to go ahead and just pull those parameters out. And it'll give you three different ways. You'll click, click, click to create the radius, the height, and then the second radius. So right now their two radii are different. And so I'll go ahead and change down here in the parameters. You can see the radius 1 and radius 2 are different. And so I'm going to go ahead and change radius 1 to maybe 2. Get it outside of that. Not 2 feet for sure. Maybe 2 inches. And then we'll change the radius 2 also to 2 inches. You can see, and that gives us something a little bit more realistic. We can turn the height up. Can change the number of turns. Okay, and you can also change the radius of the actual tube itself by going up here and changing this thickness. Okay, but the main point is to get these together. Okay, so what I'm going to do is now take both of these and kind of drop them into a rough position and try to get kind of a rough scale worked out. Let me go ahead and turn it this way. So it's going to be kind of at that angle. I may have to move it a little bit for the exhaust, but we'll kind of get it the angle close. Let's go ahead and scale this down a bit. Okay, and you can see that the spring stops right about there, and the cylinder keeps going. So I'm going to go ahead and just scale this cylinder up a bit. It's going to keep going on either side of the spring that we've got. Okay, and we can take that spring and move it up as well. If we want to do that, scale that spring up. Can do that also. Alright, so now we need to add some resolution in here and add a little bit of detail. So this piece coming out here right underneath the spring needs to be extruded out, so we need to have some geometry there. So the first thing I'll do is go ahead and add some of that just by going and converting this to an editable poly. And let's go ahead and select those edges. Select the ring. We'll go ahead and connect. Slide that to the top, basically the bottom of where that spring is. Okay, and now let's go ahead and take those polygons. Okay, and let's go ahead and extrude those out. Okay, let's do it by local normal, so they go straight out. We'll do it a very small amount to begin with, thinking about adding our sharpness. So we'll do it a small amount, apply that, a little bit bigger amount, apply that, and another small amount. Say OK to that, do an inset with a very small amount. Okay, and then we'll go ahead and take this back end, and let's go ahead and take this and just extrude that out, and then we'll just kind of scale it down a little bit, and then out again, and we'll delete that end of that. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and now take this end and kind of do something similar to that. Just go ahead and extrude it out, scale it down a bit, and extrude that out. Okay, and then I'm just going to delete that. So once we get this cylinder and the spring kind of the way that we want to, we're going to go ahead and place this. And so I'm going to go ahead and select both of these. Let's group them together, and we'll call this something like suspension or shock. And then we'll go ahead and drop this kind of into the area that we want it. So it's going to connect to the swing arm, The problem is right now that it's intersecting with the exhaust. So I'm going to kind of turn this a little bit, change the angle a little bit. If you still have your curves, this would be a great time to go in and modify those curves and just reroute it around this piece of suspension. If you don't have this and you've already got hard coded, what we can do is take the exhaust. Let me go ahead and turn that exhaust layer so that it's editable. Okay, let me go ahead and just turn that off. Okay, and then we can go ahead and take this and just add an FFD modifier to this, and then take some of these points and just kind of move it out of the way. Okay, so we'll go ahead and just take some of these, just kind of move this out of the way, and down. Okay, go in here, kind of move this whole thing down a little bit. Grab those points on top and move those down. Okay, and you'll have to modify this a little. You can see our piece is kind of coming off there. Okay, and then we can go back in with this, grab this guy and just kind of rotate it a little bit more just to kind of get it out. And then you can take this guy and kind of either rotate it or deform it back on top of here. Okay, so just so it's not intersecting with the exhaust. And then we've got some suspension there. And if you want to go ahead and change any of those settings, you can just open that group, select that helix. You can change the number of turns, do whatever you want to do with that, and you still have those parameters there. Okay, when you're done, go ahead and take the group and just close it up. All right, so that's the rear suspension. In the next lesson, let's go ahead and start to add kind of the rear piece coming off here with some of the taillights and stuff on that. So we'll go ahead and start to do that in the next lesson.